About a month ago, I wanted to make a point to go to locals every single week, and that's basically what I've been doing. So I've topped every single locals that I've entered, and I have gone to at least one every week, and in two scenarios, I went twice, which is really cool. And I'm doing that for a very specific reason. So yes, it is cool sort of gaining all this store credit, but more importantly, I just wanted to play the game. It's been weird, but a lot of the time that I spend making videos is the time that I used to spend actually playing the game, and I just don't have that much free time anymore, but I really wanted to go to locals every single week, and it's been improving me as a player a lot. I don't feel like I miss playing nearly as often as I did at the last couple regionals I went to, and I'm really excited for the Garden City regional at the end of the month because I think I have a good chance of getting my invite or maybe even a top 8. So in today's profile, and I have sort of skipped a couple locals because the list hasn't changed that much, but this is probably the most it's changed since I've started going to locals again. We're going to take a look at frogs, and I also wanted to briefly mention that this Ultimate Guard, let me move this out of the way, this Ultimate Guard deck box that I recently reviewed, it's working a lot better. You can see Michigan has warmed up a lot in the last couple days, so this thing's working great, and yeah, highly recommend. That was like my one gripe with it, was that it wasn't working fast enough when I first reviewed it, but now that it's a lot warmer, it is actually working. But anyway, let's talk about frogs, and yeah, well, I like frogs a lot. They're cool. This deck's really fun. So we have 3 copies of Swap Frog when the camera focuses, 3 copies of Dupe Frog, the most educated frog, and then 2 copies of Ronin Totem. That's pretty much what you gotta play. I mentioned in every profile, if there was like a 7th frog you could play, that'd be really cool, but you really can't. I mean, it's like Flip-Flop Frog, I guess. I almost wanted to play Uni Frog. That card like destroys back row, but it's not very good, to be completely honest. But there's supposed to be frog support in the like 2 sets ahead of us, and that could be kind of cool if it's halfway decent. Anyway, we have the Spellbook engine. So in this case, it's just 2 Blue Boy and then 1 of each of the spells. Let me zoom in here. And yeah, I mean, this engine's really, really good going first. It's pretty lackluster going second. You'll probably want to side it out just because it's super weak to disruption. But going first, it's great. So yeah, 2 of those guys, they're pretty cool. And then, man, this card is so good. Like, I thought this card was like, oh, maybe I was just going off of like anecdotal evidence, but every single week, this card is just putting in work. It's so good, and people never see it coming, and it's so powerful in this deck because this deck is all about board control, and Eater of Millions is just crazy good at board control, so it makes a lot of sense, and it really helps you when you're going second. That's probably the deck, as many of you know, going second is probably the worst part about a frog deck, just because you have so many trap cards, and I've tried to cut back on a lot of those trap cards to play more active cards like Eater of Millions, and this card is really good. So yeah, I like that guy a lot. He never let me down. And it never comes up. Well, sometimes it comes up, but you can link with him if you need to. Next we have 3 copies of Ash Blossom. I hear this card's pretty good. Yeah, it's obviously good. 2 copies of Ghost Ogre as well. I like these cards a lot more than Card of Demise. Card of Demise is a good card when it resolves. However, there are more times when you'll draw a hand trap than you would have drawn Card of Demise, because Card of Demise is only a 3 of, where we're playing 5 of these. So even if you win the games you draw Card of Demise, which, I mean, you can look at my list and know that there's like a lot that I have to change, because I'd have to take out the hand traps and the Eater of Millions, and I just like these cards way too much. But Card of Demise is cool when it goes off. It's just not what I want to play. It's not consistent enough, and I like cards like this that actually help you going second, because once again, if you go first with this deck, you'll probably just win anyway in game 1, so I want to play cards that are good going second, and that's the harder matchup. Card of Demise just seems like a win more card in a lot of cases, and yeah, so that's why we play the 5 hand traps. The 2 spellbook spells, so 1 secrets, 1 knowledge. The basic idea with the 2-1-1 lineup of the spellbook cards is that you use your first Blue Boy or secrets to get the other out of the deck, and then add knowledge to your hand, so then you only have 1 dead draw left in deck, and even if you dead draw that card, you can discard it for Swap Frog, so it's not really that bad. Yeah, I think the 2-1-1 engine is definitely the best way to do it, though, just so you have the least amount of chances to draw like knowledge as like a brick. Next up, we have 2 copies of Scapegoat. You definitely don't need 3 of this card, and sometimes you want to side it out. It's not like the greatest card going second, but man, this card's good too. Just much like Eater of Millions, it's just like a board control card because of Borlow Dragon, but also you can make Skull Dread with it if you have like another normal summon in hand, and Skull Dread is really good in this deck. I've done some plays where I have made Skull Dread with like a Ronin Totem, and then I've like had a Swap Frog in hand, and you can like special the Swap Frog with a Skull Dread effect, and Swap Frog can send a guy, and you make Toad. and then Toad gains the 300 boost from Skull Dread. Anyway, though, yeah, Scapegoat's good. It's just like another card to like make it hard for your opponent to play the game. The way that you beat frogs is just by being faster than them, but Scapegoat can block 4 attacks, so that's really good. We also play Monster Reborn and Soul Charge. These are kind of controversial picks. People don't really play these cards. I like them a lot, though. Anytime that you open Swap Frog in either of these, that's a Toad right there, even if you don't have another water. Yeah, these cards have just saved my butt a lot of times, Monster Reborn especially, but Soul Charge is pretty good. Bringing back Toad off of either of those cards is definitely a really big swing in momentum, just because it doesn't go like to the extra monster zone, so you can just summon like 2 or 3 Toads at one time with Soul Charge. Pretty stupid. Next we have the 3 Canadias, pretty cool card. 3 Olenoids. Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know. Yeah, these are like the only Paleos I play. I think you all know at this point. I don't really like the other Paleo traps. They're all pretty bad in my opinion. Dynamiscus is like okay, except that you have like nothing you want to discard, because the only cards I've ever left in your hand are Eater of Millions or a Hand Trap, and in both those cases I'd rather just have those cards than Dynamiscus. Think of Eater of Millions like a Dynamiscus that activates every turn. That's kind of how I think of it. So just those ones are fine. 3 Anti-Spell Fragrance. This card's really stupid. It just auto-wins a Pendulum matchup, but it's good against like every deck right now, except Frogs, obviously. Even like weird decks like Dinosaurs or Trickstars, like they need their spells to like actually resolve, and any deck that's playing field spells, this card's going to be good against. It also slows down any invoked deck by quite a bit. And the new card that I'm playing is D-Barrier. I played Mind Crush because Mind Crush is good in theory. It stops Evenly Matched. Fact of the matter is, not a lot of people play Evenly Matched in Game 1. Very few people actually play Evenly Matched in Game 1. And I'd rather just have a card that just, once again, this is kind of like your 4th, 5th, and 6th copy of Anti-Spell. But this is really good against not only Pendulums, obviously, but it's good against ABCs and Invoked. And I think those are the deck's worst matchups, so it's really good. Yeah, I like that card a lot. I played Mind Crush at like 6 events, including a regional, and never once I got evenly matched while I had it. So I'd rather just play a card that's better in more situations. Then the Solemn Brigade. So we have 3 Solemn Strike, 1 Solemn Warning, and 1 Solemn Judgment. These cards are ridiculous and probably shouldn't be in the game, but they're pretty cool. I mean, no, they should be in the game because it helps decks like this, and the like quote-unquote meta decks don't really play them. But yeah, it doesn't feel fair when I Solemn Judgment something. Anyway, the extra deck I think is like the same every single week. So we have 3 Toad, 2 of this guy. I have considered cutting 1 for Shining Elf. Shining Elf is a cool card when you have a Knowledge in your hand and you don't have the other spellbooks. You can make it and then send it to the grave with that. So that's kind of neat. 1 of this guy, I don't know how to pronounce his name. 2 Miststar Boy, 2 Link Spider. I mention it every week, but one of these should be Link Creepo, but no one in my area has them. 1 Proxy Dragon. So this is what you do with the Scapegoat. And then you can make Borload with those, or if you have like another monster, you can make Skull Dread. Either one is pretty good. I will say I usually make Borload just because it's so powerful, but sometimes Skull Dread's really good as well. And then lastly, Buster and Electromite. These are just for the Reaper. You could play Mechaba if you wanted, but I think ABC is like this deck's worst matchup by far. So, I mean, like Invoked is pretty bad as well, but I think I'm just bad against Invoked. Like, I just can't beat that deck. But in general, like ABC is probably the toughest matchup, so you should play Buster for sure. But if you can fit in a Mechaba, by all means, do that. Anyway, to the side deck, we have 3 copies of Lancia. Oh my god, this card's so much better than Chaos Hunter. You'll see that I'm still playing Chaos Hunter, and I think I'm going to cut it, but holy crap, this card's so good. You just do this to Invocation, and you just win the game. It's so awesome. Mostly because I'm so bad at the Invoked matchup, I just can't seem to ever draw well against that deck. I don't know, but Lancia it just instantly wins you the game against my worst matchup, so I love it. And it's really good against ABCs as well. Because, yeah, mostly after that, the Kelvin to Hand deck profile that I did, people, like, figured out that the Chaos Hunter isn't against ABCs, because they can just make the Cliffort guy and then negate it, so now Lancia is better. So it beats your worst matchup, so it's pretty good. 2 or 3 copies of Reaper. Reaper is really powerful. Once again, it beats... This card is like an instant win against Pendulums. It's so good. Some people disagree and think that it's not like an instant win against Pendulums, but like it absolutely is. Like, I don't think I've ever lost a game where I hit the Electromite with this, and even if you draw 2, you can like hit a Borload or something, or like a Proxy Dragon. I don't think they play Proxy Dragon. You'll probably just want to hit Borload, And yeah, I don't know. These cards are pretty cool. Those are really good going second. I am playing 2 Chaos Hunter. These are going to be swapped out for Gamma Seals, I think. The worst loss I've taken in this time that I've been going to locals has been to True Dracos, because I mean, you can look at this deck and like you realize that there's like no outs to Masterpiece, other than just like hoping to have like the Warning or the Strike if they get Tribute Traps. But they usually try Tribute Traps because you're playing a trap deck. So these cards like don't go in anymore against ABCs. They don't really. The only matchup where this card is like really useful is Trickstars, but it seems like Trickstars have really fallen out of popularity. I noticed that at YCS Atlanta as well. Just less and less people are playing that deck, and so I think I'm going to swap these out for Gamma Seals just because the True Draco matchup's pretty bad with this particular build. We do have 2 Twin Whisters and Regeki. These are the only cards you can actually like side against True Dracos, which is pretty disappointing. You can see where like it would have been much better if I could side these 3 and Gamma Seals. Yeah, I mean, these cards are all good. Twin Whisters is like not really good in the main deck because you don't really want to, for the same reason that we don't play Dynamiscus, we don't want to discard anything, but it's good going second because then you have 6 cards. You actually can afford to discard something, and then Regeki is just way too good right now. And lastly, we have 2 copies of Unending Nightmare and 2 copies of Mind Crush. I did keep the Mind Crushes in. When it's game 2 or 3 and you're going first, Mind Crush is pretty good because then they are going to play evenly matched. And then Unending Nightmare is really good when you're going second, surprisingly. It's a lot better than Anti-Spell, because if you draw Anti-Spell against Pendulums going second, like they've already done all their stuff. Well, Unending Nightmare is good because you can actually just keep picking apart their scales. So if you can deal with their monsters, which you usually can because of Eater of Millions and Scapegoat, then you can just Unending Nightmare the rest of their cards and they can't win. With Anti-Spell, you can't quite do that when you're going second. So anytime I'm going second, I usually side out 2 Anti-Spell for 2 Unending Nightmare, and it works pretty well. But yeah, that is the deck profile. I think it's really tight. I haven't been this confident with a build in a while. I am very excited for that regional that I'm going to. It's only been minor changes as the weeks have gone by. I think like the biggest change was putting in the Mind Crushes in the main deck and then taking them out for D-barriers. The side decks changed a little bit. The extra deck has pretty much stayed the same. But yeah, I'm really excited for that regional. I think I'm going to do halfway decent, unlike the last couple. And yeah, it's cool. But anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed yet another Frog deck profile, and I will see you later. Goodbye.